As a general rule, people don't like talking about themselves, and even less writing about themselves. They sit there with their blank page and thinking it's got to come out perfect every time, and hardly anything ever gets done. I was like that for years. Writing about myself was an absolute nightmare. I'm a copywriter. I could write about you, not a problem. Writing about myself, a whole hole of trouble. Because we think we're insignificant. We've done nothing special in our lives, because the lives that we lead, as boring or not boring as they may be, there are every day. So we think they're normal. We think that's what happens to everybody every day. But you may think your life is boring, but everybody thinks the same thing. So unless we're imbued with a large sense of ego, then why worry? I want to tell you a story which kind of illustrates this very well. Neil Gaiman, who is no slouch in terms of achieving things himself, was in a meeting of the great and good a number of years ago, and full of Nobel Prize winners and things like that. And he came across a little old man, also called Neil, and they got talking. You know, they bonded over their shared first name and everything. And this guy was saying the same thing. I've done nothing special. No, I just went where I was told to go. Yeah, that Neil was Neil Armstrong. So if Neil Armstrong can feel insignificant, feel that he's done nothing special, well, I think there's hope for us all. I lost count of the number of people that agree with me, particularly copywriters. You know, like I say, we can write about you. Writing about ourselves, it's not good at all. So we don't know where to start. So I came up with a 3-point plan to basically wring the neck of these little preconceptions and these little ideas, and we can finally put this to rest. The first step is to clear the head trash. Now, this comes with one big caveat, in that I'm not a mental health professional in any way. I'm just saying what worked for me. We fear that we won't be very good. We fear that people will judge us. We also fear that people won't be listening. Now, there's a disconnect there somewhere, because if people aren't listening, does it matter that you put stuff out to nobody? Because that way you can put out stuff and be bad, and no one will hear and no one will care. So where's the problem? But you have to start somewhere. You have to start writing something down for content. You have to start talking to a phone, talking. Doesn't matter how it comes out, but it must come out. When no one is listening, you don't need to publish. Just because you write something down, just because you record something on a phone or on an audio file or something, it can stay right in your office, in your desk, in your head. But the thing is you cannot edit what's in your head. You can only make it better once it's out of your head. You shouldn't even try to edit what's in your head, because it will be terrible. And that is fine, because that is your starting point. Terrible content. Go and have a look at Ed Sheeran's, probably his first couple of videos. They are out of tune, terrible. He's 14, out of tune. I think the guitar's out of tune as well. He kept working on it. You know, I'm no great Ed Sheeran fan, but he got better. And he hasn't done so badly. I'm going to be honest with you, there is a certain amount of vulnerability involved here, but vulnerability is a strength. But not having the pressure to publish straight away is something which hopefully will remove that embarrassment. You probably will, but I mean, I remember the first time I did this, I was very embarrassed. The first time I committed myself to any kind of audio, in fact, it was 10 o'clock at night, I was out walking the dog and it was dark and I was still embarrassed. So don't worry about it, just get started. Because when I did get started, I found it completely cathartic. And that was the beginning of me being able to talk about me, because a number of things, but I started writing this stuff and I started talking to people, and I suddenly realised that I had a story to tell and people would listen. Let's get hold of those limiting beliefs and start wringing their necks a little bit. Stage 2, you're going to map your life out. Now, the way you do this is divide your life up into 5-year chunks. Depending on how old you are, that will give you the number of chunks that you have. I've got quite a few and I'm still doing mine. You can probably use your kind of school years as 1, perhaps 2 chunks, but they are important as well. On each of those chunks, you're going to ask yourself a number of questions. Make yourself a linear timeline. Choose your weapon of choice, be it a spreadsheet, I use a Trello board, or a very big sheet of paper, whatever works for you. But you're going to start asking yourself a few questions. What was your situation in each of those? It'll be, the big outline will be easy at the beginning because you can remember when you went to school, you can remember your first job, your first whatever. You know, the magic will happen once you start filling in the gaps. What was your situation? What were the challenges you faced? What were the problems that you learnt from? Who were your mentors? Who were your teachers? Particularly at school, because obviously at school you're in peak learning. Who were your enemies as well? That's really interesting. What skills did you learn? What are your personal victories? We're looking for the turning points here, because that's your story is all about the transformations that you had. So what were you scared of? What are you still scared of even? But what's interesting in what you were scared of is, how did you overcome that fear? Was it by just growing up, or was it by doing something else? What did you learn about yourself at the time? And then possibly also in retrospect, what do you think about what you learned at the time now? Or had you perhaps learned something in the meantime, 10 years later or whatever? Phase 3 is joining the dots. Now, ideally, you wouldn't do this on your own. You do this with somebody else to whom you are not related and with whom you are not romantically involved, because they know you too well. Try and find someone, ideally you do it kind of mutually, but try and find someone to talk about this who knows enough about you to be critical, and is not non-critical, not too close to you, basically. You're going to identify trends here and paths. Just to give you one example, if you like, I'm a copywriter now. I've been a translator. I've been a travel agent back in the 80s. That was when I learned how to build relationships. I've got a degree in history. That was from almost 45 years ago. But that's where I learned how to identify trends, identify what's important, what's not important, how to do research, and how to interpret things. I could take it even back further. When I was a kid, when I was 5, 6, 7, my father worked for the railways. We went to Spain a lot. That was when I realised that foreign languages were a thing, and I saw kids speaking French, German, Italian, and other languages. And even if I thought at the time perhaps that they might think in English, that is the kind of thing that has affected me throughout my life. You will have the same kind of thing. So once you've started joining the dots, start thinking about the kind of questions like, where were the turning points? Where was the transformation? Like I said, what are the common threads? How do all those experiences and those things affect the way you run your business now, the way you approach your business? There's one thing about this process as well, is that apart from giving you a great big story bank of things to write about, I found it quite salutary because it knocks on the head that idea that you've done nothing. Because I suddenly realised, my God, I've done all this stuff. And from what people say to me, they're interested in it. Just more interesting in terms of your business, it will also give you a philosophy. Now, you could call this your why. It's a somewhat overused phrase now, but it's all about the way you approach your business and the way that the thing that makes you want to get up in the morning, because this is all about why you do what you do. And if you get that fixed, if you get the idea that you've done loads of stuff, and you get the idea, and you're going to have to trust me to some extent on this, people are interested in what you do because you have done significant things. Like I say, if Neil Armstrong can think that he's done something significant, I'm guaranteeing that you have. Now, I'm going to leave you with this point, is that if you look at your industry, accountants is a classic example because they all have the same product. A balance sheet is a balance sheet. What differentiates you from the accountant down the road? Really, why do I want to go to you as an accountant rather than the other one down the road? You do exactly the same thing. Let's kind of admit that you do the same pricing as well. They're exactly the same. I go to you because I like you more than I like the guy down the road. I relate to you more than the guy down the road. That is the only reason. So you have a story. It's the only thing you've got that makes you truly different. So why the hell would you not use it? Silly question. So I hope you gained some insight from this. If you do, I'd love you to kind of stick yourself in the comments below. Do all the YouTubey stuff, like, subscribe, and hit the bell when the new stuff's coming out, because it's coming out quite thick and fast now. And in the meantime, I'll speak to you next time.